Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of my YouTube channel. My name is Jake Fryman. I'm a realtor in Dayton, Ohio with Keller Williams Community Partners. And each week I hop on this channel and give a little bit of insight into the real estate industry, offer some helpful tips and advice to people thinking of buying or selling, and just talk a little bit what it's like to be in the real estate world. So on this week's episode, I wanted to talk about agency relationships and what that means. So if you've ever bought or sold a home before, you've seen this form that your agent shows you. It's called the agency disclosure form, and it basically explains all the different forms of agency that you can have while working with a realtor in a transaction. You may not have really looked at that form when you're given it, when it was handed to you, or maybe your agent didn't totally explain it to you like they're supposed to, or you haven't gone through the process yet, so you haven't seen that form yet. So I'll explain a little bit what that means. So there's different types of agency relationships you have with an agent when you're in a real estate transaction. The simplest form is either a buyer or seller relationship, and that's where you hire a realtor to either list and sell your home for you, to market it and sell it for you, or you hire an agent to represent you when it comes to buying a home. They help you find homes, they help you go look at them, they help you write up offers. That's the simplest form. You have one agent working for you on one side of the transaction. On the listing side, they'll give you a listing contract, so you sign that contract with the agent, and so then whatever amount of time you guys decide on, it could be 3 months, 6 months, a year, just depends, and you're under contract with that agent for that amount of time for them to sell your home for you. And so they have that long to sell until your contract expires. You can either renew, move on to a new agent, just decide to keep your home at that point. It's up to you. But so that's the contract side for the seller agent. For the buyer's agent, they'll sign the buyer's agent will present you with an exclusive right to represent. You sign that form, you guys agree on a set amount of time. I usually do 4 to 6 months, depends on the market, depends on a lot of different things, but you give your buyer's client that form saying that you will work with that agent for a set amount of time, and they represent you as the buyer. Those are the two simplest forms. There's also something called dual agency. So dual agency is where, let's say I'm listing a home and some people with no agent come to look at it, they like it, they want to buy it, and I end up representing them. So I'm representing both sides of the transaction in that case. I'm representing the buyers now and the sellers. You should always make sure that your agent asks about that first, because you may not want them to represent both sides of the transaction. There is potential for a conflict of interest there. The way I handle that is kind of on a case-by-case situation. If I want to take both sides, or if I want to refer one of those, the buyers, to another agent in my office. It just depends on the situation, really. Some sellers are cool with the agent representing both sides. It all just depends on the situation, really. But just keep that in mind, that if you have one agent doing dual agency, then they'll be representing both sides of the transaction, and that gets a little complicated, or it can be at least. If it's a smooth transaction without a lot of hiccups, with no inspection issues, no appraisal issues, it can be a pretty smooth process overall, and it's not a big deal. But just something to keep in mind that you should consider if you actually want an agent to represent both sides of the transaction or not. Just something to think about, and it's something that your seller's agent should go over with you while you're preparing to list the home, because that could come up down the road when the agent's doing an open house or something for your home, and then unrepresented buyers come along wanting to purchase. There's also something called split agency. So split agency is where it's two agents from the same office representing the buyer and the seller, respectively. Just keep in mind, as agents, we work under brokerages. We are not officially independent. We are under a brokerage as per state law. Well, that's the law in every state, really. But so that's just a special designation of agency, is when it's two agents in the same brokerage. It's not a big deal. You're still represented solely by the agent, but it is under the same brokerage, though. So all of the money, the whole transaction, is covered by the brokerage, but you still have your individual agent for the process. So I hope this was helpful. Just a little bit of explanation as to how representation works for the real estate transaction process. There's different ways of handling it. Always recommend hiring an agent, though. Recommend hiring an agent to represent you. Recommend signing that contract. You'll have their full, undivided dedication and attention for the process while you're trying to buy a home. And on the selling side, you have one agent advocating for selling your home. In either case, the agent wants it to clear, so we get our commission and we get you taken care of. It's a win-win for everyone. So always keep that in mind when you're working with an agent, what kind of representation you are under and what you could be under down the road. Hope this was helpful. I'll talk to you all next week. Be sure to like and subscribe. See you next time.